Just over a year ago, a random Twitter user with like 2 followers tweeted to Harry's Razors that, "How dare you support the Daily Wire? They are bigoted and offensive," and Harry's agreed. Harry's said, we reject these views and we will no longer sponsor the Daily Wire programming. Specifically, I believe it was with Michael Knowles. Well, the Daily Wire has issued a rebuttal. After 1 year, they've released IHateHarrys.com, which is Jeremy's Razors. And I got to say, the commercial they put out may be one of the funniest commercials I've seen. They hit the nail on the head with the hammer, and this is significant. If there's any one company that is doing the most, or doing a lot, to build culture and push back on far-left wokeness, it's the Daily Wire. Not a day goes by I am not impressed, inspired, and jealous of what they're doing. We may end up going and hanging out in Nashville a little bit with the crew from the Daily Wire, but the Daily Wire is absolutely fantastic. I mean, this is brilliant. This is their website, I Hate Harry's. Quote, "Stop giving your money to people who hate you. Give it to me instead." And there's God King Jeremy Boring with a cut on his face from shaving. So they tell the story breaking down why they're launching this new product, and it's absolutely hilarious. But in this segment, I will talk to you not just about the fact that the Daily Wire has created their own razor company, but also how many on the left are accidentally watching the Daily Wire's new cultural content and then going, "Oh no, what have I done? I enjoyed Ben Shapiro's movie." This is fascinating. As many of you know, we here at timcast.com are trying to do something relatively similar, maybe slightly different. The Daily Wire knows the power of culture. Ben Shapiro and the crew at the Daily Wire, they understand you have to build culture. For the longest time now, for I think several years, they've been working towards releasing movies and TV shows. And we've been talking to Daily Wire about, making some kind of show or content. I don't know exactly if that's anything significant. But, Ian over at Timcast, Ian on Timcast IRL, he's got crazy ideas for shows. And maybe something more will come of this, but we're inspired by this. I watch these Netflix shows, I watch these movies, and the wokeness is just, it's palpable. Even when it's a light touch, I'm just like, I don't agree with those values, so it comes off just bad. Truth be told, many on the left are looking at this and they're like, "Ew, cringe, oh, it's so awful." And I'm like, you know what, man, if you think it's awful, I don't care, good for you. I've always been of that opinion, because I'm much more live and let live civil libertarian type. So I remember back when, these Ghostbusters 2016 came out, Get Woke, Go Broke. I'm like, dude, if you like that movie, I got no beef with you. I don't like it. I'm not going to watch it. If you want to make an overly woke film like the remake of The Craft or that Shudder film, what was it called, Spiral? Yeek. By all means. I think they're terrible films because it's just a ridiculous premise, what they're doing with wokeness. But if you like it, you're allowed to like it. I'll go make my own thing. And that's what's happening. Ben Shapiro, the Daily Wire crew are like, we're going to make our own things. Now, we've actually, I think we have a similar mindset to a lot of the crew at the Daily Wire, because we've talked about what we can make in terms of services and products. So we of course have our own book at invertedworldbook.com. I think I'm getting that one right. Or you can search Amazon for Tales from the Inverted World. Our first book, we have a book. Man, we got 30 employees. We're nowhere near as big as the Daily Wire, but I am inspired by the work they're doing. Let me break down for you what's going on with Jeremy's Razors. This is their website, I Hate Harry's, and they say, "Harry's and the Daily Wire had a deal. They paid us. We advertised their razors. We did this for years with a clear understanding that Harry's can leave at any time for any reason. But then they did the one thing we expressly said they cannot do. Harry's betrayed us. At the behest of a 2-follower Twitter account, they publicly condemned our show, attacking not just me, the CEO and God King, but all of you. They said the views you hear on our programs, whether you agree with them or not, are inexcusable, and dropped their ads on our network because of misaligned values. They tried to shame you for the unforgivable sin of not adhering to their woke platitudes du jour. Enough. We told them if you ever denounce our audience, we will spend the energy we would promoting you doing the opposite. Actions meet consequences. Harry's and their ilk don't want you in their world, but I want you in mine. So stop giving your money to people who hate you. Give it to me instead. Yes, I completely agree." As most of you know, I don't shave. So I think like once a month I'll just like buzz my face. So plus it's the Korean in me. I don't grow a very prominent beard as it is. But I would absolutely say Jeremy is correct. The Daily Wire is correct, and they do deserve your money. Now, if you like Harry's and you are offended by the Daily Wire, well, then by all means, Harry's deserves your money, don't they? I mean, they stood up for your values. There you go. Now, if you're moderate, libertarian, post-liberal, civil libertarian, Jeremy's deserves your money. And no, not a promo spot or anything like that. I just think the fact that Harry's publicly denounced the Daily Wire, that is the problem. If Daily Wire went, if Harry's Razors went to the Daily Wire privately and said, guys, look, man, we're getting a lot of heat from activists. We don't feel comfortable dealing with this like overt political culture war stuff. And I think we're going to be suspending our campaign moving forward, but we appreciate everything you did for us. The Daily Wire would have been like, we understand, man, life's rough and these people are crazy. We get it. Instead, Harry's publicly denounces them. Check this out. We have this tweet. There's this Twitter user named Kay. It's a picture of Jesus with sunglasses. It says, Harry's is sponsoring Michael Knowles, the same Michael Knowles who is spreading homophobic and transphobic content. He had Joseph Nicolosi Jr. as a guest on his show and equates being trans to having schizophrenia. It is wrong that Harry's or anyone sponsors this vile content. This Twitter account does not have followers. This Twitter account, at the time, okay, it's got 43 followers now after a year, and it did a reply tweet, not a public tweet. So for those not familiar with Twitter, if you start your tweet with an @ symbol, it's a reply, and it doesn't go out to everyone. Harry's responded. Thanks for bringing this up. We condemn the views in this video, which are inexcusable and at odds with our longtime support of the LGBTQ+ community. We've ended our relationship with this show and are looking into our sponsorships to prevent any values misalignment going forward. It was simple, Harry's. All you had to do was say nothing. Send an email to the crew over the Daily Wire and say, guys, we don't want to deal with this political stuff, okay? We don't want to be a divisive brand. We're just going to stop advertising. Instead, they chose to publicly make a statement. Now, here's the most important part. Get this. The guy who tweeted this, probably 14 years old or whatever. So the guy tweets a few days later, OMG, y'all are so musty for trying to cancel a high schooler. Like y'all are mad for me making a customer complaint on Twitter. Come on. If you're going to cancel me, do it in style. Do something like cancel insert something here or cancel blank is over party or hashtag blank is over party. Do better. You are arguing with 12-year-olds. I tweeted on Twitter, no one knows you're 14. I love how people take Twitter seriously when they are probably like a 35-year-old New York-based blue-check journalist arguing with a 12-year-old who called them a slur. Then those journalists turn the slur into a huge story about online harassment. You want to know why I don't take Twitter seriously and I don't care? Because I don't feel like arguing with 12-year-olds. And these people never realized this. Yo, there's a reason people use anonymous accounts because online, no one knows you're 14. And they are. And I find it absolutely hilarious that Harry's Razors, get this, Harry's Razors canceled a lucrative advertising contract with one of the biggest media outlets in the world because a teenager with no followers complained. Bravo, Harry's, you morons. The 14-year-old doesn't shave. Jeremy Boring, who is, I guess, a silver fox, as he calls himself in the ad. The ad's hilarious, by the way. He does shave. Well, he likely trims, actually, because he keeps that beard. But Michael Knowles seems to shave. And these are people with large, prominent followings that often get the most engagement on social media, who are constantly in the news and are just they're skyrocketing in prominence and popularity. And Harry said, I'm going to bet against that. Why? Because some 14-year-old or, okay, fine, high schooler could potentially be 18. But I'm willing to bet this person is probably like 15, 14 years old. Harry's decided to play that game. Well, how stupid do you have to be? Apparently, very stupid. The Daily Wire writes, it's time to win. Introducing Jeremy's Razors. Jeremy Boring writes, Do you remember 1 year ago today when Harry's Razor dropped their ads in the Daily Wire because we had the audacity to disagree with them on a political issue? Of course you don't. Why would you? Woke corporations cancel their advertisements on conservative shows and platforms all the time. It's hardly even news at this point, just the cost of doing business. Corporate America wants it both ways. They want conservatives to buy their goods and services, but they also want to virtue signal to the woke mob and their 23-year-old employees by publicly repudiating those same conservative customers. I just want to pause and say, Jeremy, I think that dude was 14. I understand you're talking about employees. I'm saying that dude is probably 14. Well, here's the thing. I remember every time one of these cowardly companies betrays us, and it is a betrayal. Make no mistake. They know our politics before they advertise with us. That's why they advertise with us. We reach a large audience that they want to sell to. We go out of our way to make absolutely sure they know what they're getting into, and they do because it works. They're happy that we leverage our personal credibility to tell our audience about their products. Then, at the first sign of trouble from the mob, in the case of Harry's Razors, it was a Twitter account with two followers attacking them. They not only pull their sponsorship, but publicly attack us and that very audience they paid to reach. You know why they do it? In my opinion, once Harry's realized they capped out maximum subscriptions to the Daily Wire, they said, terminate it. We need an excuse. Kill the contract. So I say this, go to timcast.com and become a member to help support our work. At a certain point, here's how it works. When we first launched the website at timcast.com, there was a major spike in signups. Core audience and core fans signed up right away. Slowly then, over time, we only add little bits of membership here and there because the core audience is already signed up, and there's an upward cap. I mean, it's not like we're going to have 1 billion paying members at timcast.com. At a certain point, we've signed up as many people as we can. So then we start realizing that we used to gain hundreds of new members a day, and now it's dozens. And it's still really good, but you see, you reach that cap. For Harry's, they're probably saying, we've paid them. We've reached this point where we're, instead of getting hundreds of new subscribers, we're getting 20. Well, now it's costing us more money. We need an out from this contract. If they have a set contract, maybe, I'm not saying this is how they do it because, I guess Daily Wire said they could leave at any time for any reason. They just say, all right, let's terminate. And maybe we can generate buzz for ourselves in doing so. I'm willing to bet that Harry's thought, now that we've got these people, they're not going to cancel on us. And if they do, it'll only be a small percentage because the rest aren't paying attention. We'll then say, we stand for LGBTQ values, and then generate press in all these left outlets and get equal play. You get it? You buy sponsorship with the Daily Wire. You then stand up and say, oh, harumph, I say, how dare you? And then all the left outlets promote you and you get new customers on that end. I think it's scumbaggery. Harry said their views were inexcusable. Well, here's what they did. Jeremy says they went on to launch their own company, Jeremy's Razors. Will it work? I don't know. It certainly won't perfectly, this being the real world. No, I'll tell you this. Jeremy's Razors, I think, is going to do wonderfully. It is going to take off. Why? The Daily Wire has a massive audience. People aren't just blindly following creators like us and timcast.com or the Daily Wire. They're following these sites because they want an honest take on things, and they disagree with all of our opinions. Not every single one of them, but the people, I know this. I know you guys who watch me disagree with me all the time. But the one thing that I think the Daily Wire audience expects, what you guys expect, is that even if our opinions don't line up, we're giving you the facts as they are. What does the mainstream press do? They lie. They'll give you twisted facts and omit information for the sake of trying to mislead you. Now, don't get me wrong. We all get things wrong. We make mistakes. Sometimes we miss things. But we're trying to be like, here's what is. Here's what I think about it. Whereas the media is saying, here's what we want you to think about a fake scenario, like don't say gay. That bill doesn't exist. There is no don't say gay bill. Isn't it crazy how they lie? I think it'll work. Jeremy says, I know what won't work, what doesn't work. And what doesn't work is the nonprofit right losing its way to higher donations from a conservative movement that still has to actually spend its real money paying the left for goods and services. I want y'all to think about this. Every time you give money to a leftist organization or an organization that espouses leftist values, and many do, you are funneling money into your political opponents and they use it against you. So do what you can. We're working on this on the back end. And I'll tell you this, we're working on a new system for members. I don't want to say too much because we're not there yet, but this is going to be, well, I'll put it this way. We are working on building up products and membership services and systems that utilize companies and individuals very similar to what the Daily Wire is doing. Because it's time to stop playing these games. Let me show you this. Laughable. Defector writes, I watched a Ben Shapiro movie by accident. Oh no. Here's what they write. You're going to love it. Just check this out. Let me zoom in. If you're looking for something to watch, Shut-In is pretty fun, and Vincent Gallo gets his ass kicked if you're into that sort of thing. That's a tweet I wrote a couple weeks ago, late on a Saturday night. It no longer exists. The reason it doesn't exist is because almost immediately after I posted it, I got a DM from a friend. You know that movie was produced by the ultra-right-wing Daily Wire with only ultra-right-wing producers, talent, and so forth for that market. What? No, delete, what? Yep. They're trying to make real movies now, sneak that ish in under the cover of actual production values. For F's sake, this always happens to me. I'll be watching an ultra-evangelical movie and not realize it's ultra-evangelical. I will be listening to Christian radio and not realize it's Christian radio. If Jesus is around, I need him to announce himself, or I'll just think he's from Brooklyn. The Daily Wire should have been enough of a signpost. The conservative media company co-owned by Ben Shapiro produced Shut-In. I saw the name appear and thought, interesting, I guess some media site made this weird. I made a mental note to look that site up. Otherwise, there was no reason for me to intuit the right-wing underpinnings of a single mom who used to be a drug addict being locked up by her drug addict ex in a pantry with a crucifix and a Bible and some drugs and a whole bunch of apple butter. Lots of apples, they're everywhere. It's amazing. Shut-In belongs to the stealth Christian genre. Ben Shapiro is Jewish. I love this, man. These people are insane. Look at this one. From Fast Company, Ben Shapiro's Netflix rival is shockingly competent, but still obsessed with right-wing grievances. They say the last 5 years or so have not been cinematically kind to conservatives. So many movies were either direct or indirect rebukes of Trumpism. Red-pilled performers like James Wood, Kevin Sorbo, and Antonio Sabato Jr. pronounced themselves blacklisted from Hollywood for no reason other than political and or Christian beliefs, definitely not for being difficult to work with or be around. Adding insult to injury, Clint Eastwood only made 5 movies. Because Hollywood isn't serving much of what conservatives crave these days, they've increasingly begun making it without Hollywood. The most interesting recent examples come from the popular, reactionary platform, The Daily Wire, which launched a production shingle at the top of 2021. As of this March, the company has released 3 films, none of which are quite what Daily Wire critics might expect to find on a streaming menu in between various talk shows hosted by CEO Mascot and I'm not reading that. Our mission is simple. We will make great entertainment that all Americans can enjoy regardless of their political views, Daily Wire co-CEO Jeremy Boring said in an announcement. If you're fed up with the cultural edicts of our country's self-appointed moral overlords in Hollywood and legacy media, stay tuned. It's a fascinating promise. Movies with an express conservative bent often turn out like the staggeringly bad Roe v. Wade, the cloying self-righteous God's Not Dead, or Dinesh D'Souza's eminently debunkable documentaries. Run, Hide, Fight, they mention. The school shooting vigilante flick that kicked off the studio's slate last year is shockingly competent. Its acting, this thing keeps playing, it's so annoying. They say, the acting is solid, especially from our vigilante hero, Isabel May, and the lead shooter, Eli Brown. The action sequences are engaging, and there is an attention to craft in the structure and pacing that keeps the film from dragging. I'm not sure what I expected from Run, Hide, Fight or other Daily Wire outings, but they're far superior to those expectations. Credit where it's due, these are real movies, not simply vehicles to express one's worldview. They go on to mention ham-fisted conservative messaging. Sure, let me tell you something. The goal of producing culture is to instill your values. On Twitter the other day, I posted a video. I'm sitting in the basement over here at the studio, and we are watching Star Trek: The Next Generation, because it's the best show ever, just before we went up to go to the studio. And I was watching the episode where Data, the android, creates a child. My friends, if you have not watched Star Trek: The Next Generation and you are into politics and all of this stuff, you're seriously missing out. And I implore you to watch that series. And I'm not joking. And don't roll your eyes, because let me explain something. In this episode, there's a character on the show named Data. Most of you probably know. Data is an android and the only one of his kind, technically, because he also has a brother named Lore who's, let's call it defective. But there was a great scientist who created an android, an artificial life form. In the Star Trek universe, they've not been able to recreate this at the time. So Data, the android himself, trying to learn to be more human, creates a new android based off of his internal workings to carry on the legacy of the doctor who created him, but also because he wants to know what it is to have a child. Well, this is a profound scientific breakthrough. And an admiral for Starfleet says, I want that android that he created delivered to us now, because the creation of artificial life is profound. It's meaningful. Well, Data, who has no emotions, seeking to be human, to understand what it means to be human, refuses, saying, I will not give up my child. And the admiral says, then I'm going to order you to give your child to us. And Data, makes a face and then stands up, and Captain Picard says, belay that order, Commander. Or Lieutenant, or whatever. And then the admiral says, I beg your pardon. And Picard says, stand your ground, Mr. Data. The admiral looks at Picard and says, you are jeopardizing your command and your career. And then Picard smirks and says, there comes a time when men of good conscience must, do what's right. I'm paraphrasing. And he says, to compel a man to give his child to the state. Not while I'm captain. And he says, we'll take it to Starfleet ourselves. Man, the values that I have very much come from the writing on that show. And I'm not kidding. Not only that show, obviously, but these are the things that my parents or my dad would watch, what I grew up watching. This is the kind of cultural content that resonates with me to this day. When I see Patrick Stewart, Captain Picard, making these statements, standing up, he says, he says to the admiral, you recognize their sentience, but you would deny them their freedoms, their liberties, to compel a man to give his child to the state. I'm like, oh, yes, into my veins, Captain Picard. What an amazing show. Absolutely amazing. And there's so much more like that. The Borg, the collectivism, how it's this evil, encroaching entity. Brilliant. Now, modern Star Trek, bleh. Sad, really. The Picard series, whatever. Nostalgia. It's fun to watch Picard on Paramount Plus because you're getting a continuation of the 90s era Star Trek, which they've not given us. Even now, they're not giving us. And now the new series, the new season of Picard on CBS is woke. Woke-ish, but it's getting there. They have to go back in time. I kid you not, listen to this. In the new series of Picard, it's like Star Trek, right? They have to go back in time to change the past in 2024. Because something happened in 2024 that turned Earth into a human supremacist planet. Oh, geez. Blech. Vomit. Just absolute trash. Now, look. Star Trek was always political. Absolutely. It was always political. And it was rather progressive. But this was, I say progressive in the sense of advancing civil libertarianism. Today's modern progressives, it doesn't mean that. I don't know what modern progressivism is. Star Trek was overtly political. The episode, The Make of a Man, questioning whether or not Data, an android, truly is a sentient being, has a profound impact on me. How do you determine the rights of something else? How do you know something else actually is a sentient being worthy of rights? Amazing questions. There's also an episode where, what is it, The Sins of the Father, maybe? I don't know if that's the one or if that's the name of it. But there's an ensign, I think an ensign, or someone working on the ship who is hiding that their grandfather, I think their grandfather, one of their parents or grandfather is Romulan, and they're accused of being a spy, and there's a witch hunt to hunt down the person, and it's moral panic. It's just really amazing. Who's the spy? Who's leaking? And what an excellent show. Those values, the politics in that show were civil libertarian. When Captain Picard stands up to the admiral and says, men of good conscience must not follow unjust orders. Do you think these values would persist today? No. And many people who are fans of the show say in Picard, he'd probably be like, you must go with the state because they know what's best. Because the values have completely changed. So I think shows can have political backing, but don't need to be overt. They don't need to be. So I wonder what the authoritarian factions back in the late 80s, early 90s thought about Star Trek. Star Trek at the time, The Next Generation, was the most popular show on TV. It was syndicated on multiple networks. I wish we had more shows like that. Instead, I think we raised a generation, millennials and Gen Xers, who don't realize why civil libertarian values played so well. And so what they end up doing is saying, well, no, it wasn't the libertarian values, it was progressivism. It was what young people wanted. That's what worked. So now they're just making this crackpot nonsense BS. So I look at what the Daily Wire is doing with everything they're doing, and I'm inspired, and I'm jealous. And I wish that we had the budget to do half of what they're doing. I would absolutely love to make a series that instilled these values. You know, I've talked about varying ideas and how to do shows, and a lot of people want to do these dramas, but I think what we need right now, what would be great, think about what Star Trek is. It's a military exploration vehicle. The Federation isn't overly militaristic in Star Trek, but they follow naval tradition. So it's, you know, a lot of the same terminology and ranks and everything like that. It's very much military. It is Starfleet saying, you know, belay that order, Commander. I am going to take this. It's very much militaristic. The idea it is overtly a show about a political structure. In this show, they explore, they encounter interesting circumstances that question our values, beliefs, and how we would apply them, and technology and entities beyond our comprehension. There's so many questions about religion, philosophy, human behavior, and drama. I'd love to make a show like that so that kids growing up today can see a person of authority defy their ranking officer because the ranking officer was violating the rights of someone. That's the kind of value that I think we want instilled. I watched a video on Reddit, and it was a bunch of people protesting racism. And a Chinese woman, protested saying that black people had been racist to her. And people immediately tried shutting her up and taking the mic from her. She wasn't really using it, she was yelling. And they were like, okay, no. And she was like, anyone can be racist. We need to look inside people. And they were like, no. And she's like, wait, maybe I'm not saying, am I not explaining myself right? Because English was clearly her second language. No, they just don't share your values. They don't agree with you. But this young woman genuinely thought that the anti-racist people didn't want to judge someone based on race. And then she got a rude awakening. They do. They want to judge you based on race. So how about we make shows and content that express civil libertarian values and true equality, not equity, not cult garbage that tries to manipulate you. A message that says you are responsible for yourself, you are free, and we will defend your rights. We've lost so much of that today. It's all considered right-wing now. Well, you know what? So be it. Good on you, Daily Wire. Keep it up. We're going to be doing the same thing. We're working on bits and content with Cast Castle. Go to youtube.com/castcastle. Watch our vlog. Because our approach to this is going to be less traditional, more social media based. I'd love to do shows, by the way. We also have Chicken City. Go to youtube.com/Chicken City if you want to watch chickens. Because we're making everything. Oh, I'll tell you this, man. Tales from the Inverted World. InvertedWorldBook.com. Cultural content. It's exploring. The next book we're having coming up is like Ghost of the Civil War, I think, or Ghost of the Confederacy. Crazy stories, not overtly political, because I think building culture is paramount. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out. Shout out to the Daily Wire crew. You guys are killing it, and we'll see you all in the next segment.